Hi, it's Caitlin from Caitlin J Osteopathy. I'm just going to go through some exercises and stretches you can do to help with your lower back pain. So the first exercise we're going to do for our lower back is we're going to gently bring those legs out in front of us, still lifting those knees up towards the ceiling. Open your heels to just a little bit wider than hip width apart and bring those hands behind you for support. We're going to gently rock our knees to one side, bring them back through center and rock the opposite way. Try and keep your chest and shoulders facing forwards, but you can feel that rotation through your hips, and you can allow those hips to lift off the mat as they rock from side to side. You should feel this gently encouraging that movement through your lower back, but will also help alleviate any tension through the front of those hips. You want to keep going through that exercise for about 10 times to each side. Next, we're going to do some spiky ball work through our glutes. You can also use a foam roller if you have one, or just a tennis ball without the spikes will also do the same job. So I'm going to place that spiky ball onto the mat, and then we're going to gently lift up through our hips and place that glute onto your spiky ball. It can be pretty tender, so you may need to use those legs and your hand to lift yourself off the ball. Then we're going to start rolling around through those glutes. And when you find a nice tender spot, we're going to sink into that spot, allowing that glute to relax and take a few breaths. And allow that glute to sink a little deeper into that spiky ball on that tender spot until we start to feel that tension relieve. Or if it gets too much, we're going to move onto a different spot, working through that glute and finding some different spots to hold onto. And we want to do that on both sides. If you prefer to use a foam roller, you can bring that foam roller, come to have a seat on your foam roller, cross your leg over so you're in that figure 4 position, and then we're going to roll that glute over the foam roller, rolling forwards and backwards, that entire length of your glute in through the back of that hip. Again, similar to the spiky ball, you can find those extra little sore spots and just try and hover over them or do a slight little roll back and forth over those little tender spots. We want to foam roll for about a minute on each side and then swap through to your opposite glute, spiky ball or foam roller, rolling back and forth, relieving that tension. Stay with that for about a minute before you move on to the next exercise. And again, if you're using that spiky ball, I'm going to place it down onto the mat and then roll through that spiky ball, finding those different tender spots and hovering on them. If it is too much with the spiky ball on the mat, you can also do it standing up. So we're going to bring our spiky ball over to the wall, placing that spiky ball against the wall and then placing our hip onto that spiky ball. We can do the same thing, just gently rocking back and forwards. And if you find that tender spot, you can hover onto it. The good thing about doing it on the wall is you have a little bit more control over the amount of force that goes through it. So if it's a little bit too tender on the floor, you might be best to do it against the wall. Next, we're going to come to lie on our backs to do some lower back mobility in that position. So gently lie down on your back, hands down by your side, your knees are lifted gently up towards the ceiling. I'm going to start off with a nice little pelvic rock. So what we're going to do is rock back, bringing those hips closer to our ribs, flattening that back into the mat. And then rocking forwards, getting that nice little arch through your lower back, rocking onto those hips. Rocking back and rocking forwards, encouraging that little flexion and extension through your lower back. So you want to feel that lower back flatten into the mat. And then rocking forward onto those hips as you feel that lower back arch away from the mat. Rocking back and forwards. Feeling that nice little mobility through your lower back. So you want to do about 15 to 20 of those. Walk our heels out a little bit wider, so about the width of the mat or just wider than your hips. Bring those hands out into a capital T position, so out to your sides. Going to rock our knees across to the right, allowing that left hip to lift if needed. Bring your gaze to the opposite direction. Then going to float our knees back through center. Rock those knees across to the other side. Take out my plant. Bring your gaze away from the knees. Floating back through center with an inhale and exhaling as you bring your knees across and your gaze is coming to the opposite direction. We want to keep our shoulders nice and steady on the floor here. And you may feel that little stretch in through the front of your hips also. Making sure you don't just let those knees fall towards the floor. We want to control the movement in both directions. And keep focusing on your breath. Continuing to do that until you feel that range through your hips increase. And you feel any restriction through your lower back decrease. We're going to cross our right ankle over our left knee, bringing those hands out into a capital T. We're going to keep the left foot on the mat. We're going to rock our body across to the side with that left knee and then rocking it to the other side. Keeping those shoulders on the mat. Allowing those hips to lift from side to side. So this is going to encourage that mobility through our lower back, but also gently stretch out through that right glute. We want to do about 10 of these from side to side. Feeling that gentle release through your lower back. And that gentle stretching feeling through your right glute. When you finish your 10 to each side, we're going to swap over to the other side. Bring your left ankle to your right thigh. Hands are still out in that capital T. We're going to continue through that movement. Rocking that right knee from side to side. Keeping your shoulders steady and heavy into the mat, rocking through those hips. You may feel this working through your belly a little bit also, but the main focus is to stretch through that left glute and feel that mobility, encouraging that movement through your lower back. And you want to do about 10 on that side also. Next we're going to do some stretches through our glutes and through our hamstrings, so through the back of our legs. First we're going to cross that right ankle over our left knee, grab behind that left knee and gently bring that left knee towards our chest. We want to start to focus on our breath, so inhaling and exhaling. And as you exhale, you want to gently bring that left knee a little bit closer towards your chest. And you will want to allow that right glute to sink down towards the mat. You want to try and remain as passive as possible through that right glute to encourage that stretch and gently feel the length through that right glute. Keep focusing on your breath. Inhaling through your nose and exhaling through your mouth. Each time you're exhaling, letting that right glute sink a little bit deeper towards the mat. We're going to swap over sides, so bring those legs back down towards the mat. Cross your left ankle over your right knee, and then grab behind that right knee and gently pull that knee towards your chest. Inhaling and exhaling, remembering to gently encourage that stretch with each exhale, pulling that right thigh a little bit closer towards your chest, allowing that left glute to sink down towards the mat, trying to remain as passive as possible through that left glute so that it's sinking down towards the mat throughout the entire stretch. Inhale, exhale, let that left hip go. And then we're going to release out of that stretch. We're going to go for a little active hamstring stretch here. So we're going to keep those hands interlaced behind our right knee. Flex our toes back towards our face. Then we're going to straighten that right leg up towards the ceiling and bend back down to 90. Straightening and bending. We should feel that length all the way down the back of our leg, keeping those hips heavy on the floor. We're going to keep those toes pulling back towards our face throughout the whole exercise. And if you can't get that leg perfectly straight, that's totally fine. We just want to feel that length or that stretch down the back of our leg. And it should just be a stretch, it shouldn't be painful. We want to aim for about 10 on that side. So when you're finished your 10, you're going to place that leg down onto the mat, swapping straight over to the other side, interlacing those fingers behind your thigh, flexing your toes back towards your face, and then going through that active hamstring stretch through the other side, straightening and bending that leg. You'll gradually feel like you can get a little bit further with that stretch, making sure you're keeping your hips heavy on the mat, keeping those toes pulling towards your face, and encouraging that length down the back of your leg. I'm going to finish the 10 off on that side, and then release that leg back down towards the floor.